Once again, welcome back to the online sessions of Samagra Shiksha. Myself, before you, with name Bhargavi, a PGT of Chemistry in KGBV Vemula from Kadapa district. In our previous class, we discussed solid state. So, in that chapter, we discussed what is meant by solid state. That means what is the necessity why we have to discuss about this solid state. In our first year, we discussed in states of matter about the gaseous state, gas, glass, that all we discussed. So in the second year, in the first chapter, we are discussing about the solid state. So in our previous class, we discussed why we have to learn about the solid state. Okay, and also what are the different types of solids based on the arrangement of constituent particles. How those solids are classified, means about crystalline solids and amorphous solids we discussed. So now in this session, now I am going to explain you the differences between crystalline and amorphous solids. In our previous class I told you that the crystals which have the regular arrangement, those are called as crystalline solids, and which have the irregular arrangement. Amorphous means in Greek word, it is a Greek word. Amorphous means already I told you in our previous class, that is no form. That means which don't have any regular pattern of arrangement. Those are called amorphous solids. Now see here, if we take the crystalline solids, all the crystalline solids as they have the regular arrangement of constituent particles. Constituent particles means already I told you, either they may be atoms or they may be molecules or they may be ions. Okay. So as they have the regular arrangement, they have the definite geometrical structure. So crystalline solids, as they have the regular arrangement of constituent particles, they have the definite geometrical structure. Either it may be cubic, face-centered cubic or body-centered cubic. Okay, like this. Next, if we come to the case of amorphous solids, as they don't have the regular pattern, as they have the irregular pattern of constituent particles, they don't have any regular structure. The structure won't be. Simply if you want to say amorphous means a powdered form. Okay. Next, they have sharp melting point. Crystalline solids have sharp melting point. That means the sharp melting point of crystalline solids will be a fixed temperature. It may be 30 degree or 60 degree or 90 degree. It depends on the crystal. But if we come to the case of amorphous solids, the amorphous solids, they gradually soften over a wide range of temperature. Means they don't have the sharp melting point. The range of temperature means they may be 35 to 40 or 45 to 50 or 55 to 60, 60 to 70, like this. The range of temperature will be in the case of amorphous solids. Next, if we come to the crystalline solids, when we cut them with a sharp edged tool, by taking any tool, if we cut any crystal, then we cut anything, what will happen? It will generate, or it will broken into two pieces. Yes or not? Now the two pieces of crystalline solids, they are plain and smooth. For example, if I take any crystal, when we broke it into two pieces, what will happen? Two surfaces will be appear, no. So those two surfaces, the surfaces of those two pieces also will be plain and smooth. Okay, but in the case of amorphous solids, when we cut them, the newly generated surfaces, they have irregular surface. That means they don't have the regular surface, they have irregular surface. Means their surface won't be plain or it won't be smooth. It may be up and downs like this. Irregular means either with up and downs and all those. Okay, so as they have the regular pattern of arrangement, even though when we cut them, the newly generated pieces also have the plain and smooth surface in the case of crystalline solids. But when we come to the amorphous solids, as they have the irregular pattern of arrangement, the newly generated pieces have irregular because the surface of the crystal, it is not plain in the case of amorphous solids. So even though we cut the newly generated surfaces also, the newly generated pieces also, they also don't have the irregular surface, they will have the irregular surface. And they have definite heat of fusion. Already in the case of melting point, I told you, a particular temperature will be at a particular temperature But in the case of amorphous solids, they don't have definite state of fusion. Wide range of fusion will be. Next, anisotropic. Already I told you, if we take the crystalline solids, those crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature. Anisotropic means what? So anisotropic means, already I told you, within the same crystal, exhibition of different physical properties like the electrical conductivity and refractive index along different directions within the same crystal. In the crystal itself, along a vertical direction one type, along diagonal direction one type of physical property if it will exhibit. The difference in the exhibition of physical properties along different directions within the same crystal is called as anisotropy. Generally, crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature except this cubic crystal. Next, if we take amorphous solids, they are isotropic. They will exhibit the same physical properties along all directions within the crystal. Next, they are called as true solids. What is meant by true solids? Already I told you, true solids, they will have the regular pattern of arrangement. If we come to the amorphous solids, we can call them as either pseudo solids or supercooled liquids. Why we can call them as supercooled liquids? Best example I gave you as the window pane, old window pane. If we observe the old window pane, what will happen, Nana? What will happen, for example, if we observe it after some days? First, when they prepared it, the thickness will be same throughout the window pane. But after some years of time, what will happen? The bottom part will become thicker than the top part. Why? Because the supercooled liquid which is here, the glass is a best example for supercooled liquid. That flows down. Generally, solids are non-fluids. They want to flow. But in the case of liquids and gases, they are fluids. H1L. So as it is also a supercooled liquid, it flows from top to bottom slowly. Slowly it will pass. That's why only it will take some years of time to move from top to bottom. After some years of time only we can observe this thickness, increase in thickness at the bottom. Okay, Nana. Next. That's why we can call them as supercooled liquids. And crystalline solids, as they have the regular pattern of arrangement, we can say that they have long range order of constituent particles. In the case of amorphous solids, they'll have the very short range order of constituent particles. Okay, so these are the differences between crystalline and amorphous solids. So you may get a doubt here. Why? Except the cubic crystals, the remaining are isotropic in nature, means the three-fold axes which are present in this cubic crystal, they make the ellipsoid into a sphere. So that's why what happened, all the physical properties within that sphere along all directions will be similar. So except the cubic crystals, remaining all the crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature. The next topic is classification of crystalline solids. Classification of crystalline solids. So based on the intermolecular forces of attraction existing in between the constituent particles, these crystalline solids are classified into 4 types. So based on intermolecular forces. Based on intermolecular forces, these crystalline solids are classified into 4 types. Those 4 types are: first one, molecular solids; second one, ionic solids; third one, metallic solids; fourth one, covalent or network solids. So, based on the intermolecular forces, what is meant by this term intermolecular forces? We discussed in our last class. While explaining the arrangement of constituent particles in solids, liquids and gases, I explained you about the intermolecular forces of attraction. What is meant by intermolecular forces of attraction? Means nothing but the attractive forces exist in between any two adjacent molecules in the crystal lattice. That is nothing but intermolecular forces of attraction. Now here, intermolecular forces, the attractive or repulsive forces exist in between the two constituent molecules is nothing but intermolecular forces. So, based on the intermolecular forces existing in between the constituent particles, the crystalline solids are classified into 4 types. What are those 4 types? Those are nothing but molecular solids, ionic solids, metallic solids and covalent or network solids. Now, these molecular solids are further classified into 3 types. Molecular solids are further classified into 3 types. What are those 3 types? Now see here, non-polar molecular solids, polar molecular solids and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So what are those 3 types? Those are nothing but non-polar molecular solids, polar molecular solids and hydrogen bonded molecular solid. Just this is a brief classification. Now let me explain them one by one. First one, molecular solids. So, the term itself indicates that the constituent particles are molecules. So, in molecular solids, the term molecular itself indicates that the constituent particles in the crystalline solids are molecules. So, in the crystalline solids which have molecules are the constituent particles, those are called as molecular solids. These molecular solids are further classified into 3 types. What are those 3 types? I told you know, non-polar molecular solids, polar molecular solids and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. What are they? So molecular solids are further classified into 3: non-polar molecular solids, polar molecular solids and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So let me explain them one by one. Non-polar molecular solids. Generally polar. Polar means what? Pole means nothing but a charge, either plus or minus. Yes or not? Poles mean positive pole or negative pole. Now see here, non-polar. Polar means they should have the charge. Non-polar, opposite to that, they don't have any charge. That means in this type of molecular solids, non-polar molecular solids, there won't be any charge separation. Charge separation won't be in case of non-polar molecular solids. Let me explain you one example. Best example, argon or helium, hydrogen, iodine. Okay, such type of atom or molecules are the examples for non-polar molecular solids. So in this, for example, I will take hydrogen. The hydrogen molecule, a non-polar covalent bond is formed. So which bond? Non-polar covalent bond. What is called a non-polar covalent bond? Generally, covalent bond means nothing but the bond which is formed by sharing of electrons. Already, we discussed the types of bonds in our first year chemical bonding chapter. So there, covalent bond means nothing but the bond which is formed by sharing of electrons. Am I correct? Now see here, non-polar covalent bond means nothing but the bond which is formed is also a bond. The non-polar covalent bond also formed by sharing of electrons only. But here, after forming a bond, for example, let me explain one more. Bond which is formed by sharing of electrons. Now see here, this is HF, hydrogen fluoride, and this is hydrogen. Now the bond is formed by sharing of a pair of electrons in between two hydrogens. Here, the bond is formed by sharing a pair of electrons, but in between two different atoms, one is hydrogen and another one is fluorine. Now if you take the electronegativity difference between these two atoms is 0. As both are identical, the electronegativity difference is 0. What is meant by electronegativity here? Have you listened this term electronegativity? Yeah. So electronegativity means nothing but this term got in your second year periodic table chapter, periodic classification chapter. So electronegativity, it is a periodic property. So what is meant by electronegativity? So electronegativity means nothing but the ability of attracting bond pair of electrons towards itself. So ability to attract shared pair of electrons, a bond pair of electrons towards itself is nothing but electronegativity. Now see here, both are having same electronegativity. So the bond pair of electrons, they won't move either towards this hydrogen or towards this hydrogen. But in the case of this hydrogen fluoride, if you take, first hydrogen can donate one electron and fluorine donate one electron, and both will share the pair of electrons to attain the stable configuration. Okay? But after forming a bond, what will happen means, due to its more electronegativity or high electronegativity, the fluorine attracts the bond pair of electrons. It pulls the bond pair of electrons towards itself. When it pulls the bond pair of electrons towards itself, what will happen? The bond pair of electrons, they will move towards fluorine. As it pulls, the bond pair of electrons moves towards fluorine. We know no tug of war game. So which side they'll pull with more force, the rope will go that side only. No, in the same manner here, fluorine with high electronegativity, the fluorine pulls the bond pair of electrons towards itself. So the shared pair of electrons, they'll move towards fluorine. So as they move towards fluorine, what happened? On hydrogen will get partial positive charge, and on fluorine partial negative charge will be formed. So here poles, positive pole, negative pole are formed. That's why it is called as polar covalent molecule. But here there is no charge separation. Why? Because both are having same electronegativity. So in the case of tug of war, when both sides If they apply equal force, what will happen? The rope will be in that particular direction. It won't move either this side or this side. If both will apply same amount of force. In the same manner here, both are having same electronegativity. The electronegativity difference is 0. So this hydrogen won't push the electron towards itself. In the same manner, this hydrogen also won't pull the electron towards itself. So the shared pair of electron, they won't move towards any hydrogen. So there won't be formation of either positive or negative charge. So charge separation is not here. In the case of non-polar covalent molecules, non-polar covalent bond, charge separation won't be there. Then which type of attractive forces holds these two atoms? So in this case, a very weak forces which are called as van der Waals forces. Van der Waals forces, or we can also call them as London dispersion forces. Van der Waals forces or London dispersion forces holds these molecular solids. So already Van der Waals or London dispersion forces means we discussed in our first year. So the weakest forces, Van der Waals forces are the weakest forces. So that much of weak forces will exist. They will hold the atoms in this, they will hold the molecules in this case of non-polar molecular solids. So in the case of non-polar molecular solids, there will be a formation of non-polar covalent bonds which Van der Waals forces are London dispersion forces will, what will happen? They will hold their molecules together. And generally, that is soft solids. So generally, non-polar molecular solids are soft. And also, they are non-conductors of electricity. Why they are non-conductors of electricity? Because there is no charge separation. Charges are not formed, free electrons are not there, so and free ions are also not there. So they act as a non-conductors. They won't allow electricity to pass through it. So generally, non-polar solids are non-conductors of electricity. And as they are soft, the melting point will be low. The melting point of this non-polar crystalline solids will be less. Examples already I told you, organic, helium, hydrogen, iodine, carbon tetrachloride, like this. They are the best examples for this non-polar molecular solids. Next one, polar molecular solids. Molecular solids, the name itself indicating that polar. So in this, polar covalent bond will be formed. Which bond will be formed? Polar covalent bond. Just now I explained, by taking HF as an example, due to its high electronegativity, this fluorine attracts, or it pulls the shared pair of electrons towards itself. Due to that, what will happen? So this bond pair of electrons will move slightly towards fluorine. So on hydrogen will get partial positive charge, and on fluorine will get partial negative charge. See here, only partial charges are formed. Partial charges are formed. Okay, now that's they are not the complete charges. Complete charge separation is not there in the case of polar molecular solids. Just they are the partial charges only. Okay. And which type of attractive forces will hold these polar molecular solids? Means dipole-dipole interactions will be there. Dipole-dipole attractive forces. In the case of non-polar molecular solids, how the van der Waals or London dispersive forces held the molecules together. In the same manner, in this case of polar covalent solids, polar molecular solids, the dipole-dipole interaction will hold the molecules together. Okay. Next, there are also non-conductors of electricity. Why? Here complete charge separation is not there and free ions want to form. Free electrons are also not there. So, that are non-conductors of electricity. There are also soft solids and their melting points. Polar molecular solids melting points are higher than the melting points of non-polar molecular solids. So, if we compare the melting points of polar molecular solids and non-polar molecular solids, melting points of polar molecular solids are higher than the melting points of non-polar molecular solids. Generally they'll exist as gases and liquids at room temperature in the form of the gases and liquid states. Okay. Next one. So examples HF, different we have. So HCl, SO2, NH3, solid NH3, solid SO2. These are the best examples for this polar molecular solids. Next one, hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So what is this hydrogen bonded molecular solid? So in this, which bond will exist? Hydrogen bond. So what is meant by this hydrogen bond? We discussed in the chemical bond in our first year chemical bond chapter. In that we discussed about intermolecular hydrogen bond as well as intramolecular hydrogen bond. So hydrogen bond means nothing but attractive forces exist in between hydrogen and electronegative atom. Of same molecule or another molecule. Of same molecule or another molecule. So the attractive forces exist in between the hydrogen and the electronegative atom. Hydrogen is common and electronegative atom means either oxygen or nitrogen or fluorine. Okay, the attractive forces exist in between the hydrogen and electronegative atoms, either of same molecule or another molecule. Why I told you same molecule means if the attractive forces exist within the molecule, then we can call that bond as intramolecular hydrogen bond. Intramolecular hydrogen bond. If the attractive forces exist in between the hydrogen of one molecule and the electronegative of another molecule, then this is intermolecular hydrogen bond. Okay. So in the case of hydrogen bonded molecular solids, which bond will form? Hydrogen bond will form. Generally hydrogen bond is polar. Why? Why see here? Hydrogen bond is formed in between hydrogen and electronegative atom. Generally, hydrogen is electropositive. Already we know hydrogen is electropositive. And if you take the electronegative atoms, means nothing but they have the more electronegativity than hydrogen. What happened? They will, for example, if you take hydrogen fluoride or water molecule, let us take water molecule. In that, what will happen, ma? The bond pair of due to high electronegativity, this oxygen attracts the shared pair of electrons towards itself. So what will happen? They will move towards oxygen. The shared pair of electrons move towards oxygen. So on hydrogen will get partial positive charge and then oxygen will get partial negative charge. So this is also, the hydrogen bond is also polar covalent bond only. So these hydrogen bonded molecular solids are also soft, and the best example is ice. Best example for this hydrogen bonded molecular solids is ice, nothing but water. Generally, these hydrogen bonded molecules are volatile liquids. What is this volatile? Volatile means nothing but which readily undergo evaporation. Which readily undergo evaporation. So generally, hydrogen bonded molecular solids are volatile liquids. Okay. So this is the about molecular solids. Molecular solids are classified into three types: polar molecular solids, non-polar molecular solids, and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. Next one. Ionic solids. Ionic molecular solids. The name itself indicating that ions are the constituent particles. So the molecular solids in which ions are the constituent particles are called as ionic molecular solids. Best examples for these ionic molecular solids are NaCl. Okay, sodium chloride, potassium chloride. These are the best examples for this ionic molecular solids. Now let me show you the structure of NaCl. Now see here, each ion is surrounded by the other ions. Now see here, this is the chloride ion. Chloride ion is surrounded by sodium. Again chloride. Like this, each sodium ion is surrounded by 6 chloride ions, and in the same manner, each chloride ion is surrounded by 6 sodium ions. In our first year chemical bonding chapter, we got this structure of NaCl where each sodium ion is surrounded by 6 chloride ions because the coordination number is 6. Okay, na? So in this case of ionic molecular solids, the ions are the constituent particles. They will arrange like this. Okay. In this ionic molecular solids between the ions, which type of forces will exist? Electrostatic forces of attraction will exist. So the ions are held together by electrostatic forces of attraction. The strongest forces of attraction are nothing but electrostatic forces of attraction. Okay. Now see here. So in the case of ionic molecular solids, ions are the constituent particles. How many types of ions we have? We have two types of ions. Well, these are positive ions or cations. Negatively charged ions are anions. So in between those ions, which type of forces will exist? Electrostatic forces of attraction will exist. For example, now we will take sodium, Na plus and Cl minus. We will take potassium, Ka plus and Cl minus. So they will exist. In between these ions, this electrostatic force of attraction will exist. And they are bad conductors of electricity. Bad conductors. They are also non-conductors in a solid state. When they are in the solid state, they are the non-conductors. So why I am saying they are the non-conductors of electricity in the solid state means, just now I told you, no, in the case of these ionic solids, ions are the constituent particles, and in between the ions, the strong electrostatic force of attraction will exist. So as they are hold together by that strong electrostatic force of attraction, they can't move away from each other. Yes or not? So as they can't move away due to the absence of free ions, they won't pass the electricity. So they'll act as a non-conductors of electricity in the solid state, but they'll act as a good conductors in fused state or molten state. Good conductors in fused or molten state. Good conductors in fused or molten state. Fused or molten or aqueous solution state. So why this fused, in this fused or molten state or in aqueous state, the free ions will be present. The electrostatic forces won't exist and the free ions will be present. So due to the formation of free ions, the electricity, they will allow the electricity to pass through it. So electricity means nothing but flow of electrons and flow of ions, no? So in the case of solid state, due to the existence of strong electrostatic force of attraction, free ions won't form, so they are the bad conductors in solid state. But in the case of molten state or in aqueous solution state, aqueous means nothing but when we dissolve them in the water, we can get the aqueous solution. So in that aqueous solution state, there will free ions will be formed. That means, for example, if we take sodium chloride, when it dissolves in the water, it will form Na plus and Cl minus, and also H plus and OH minus ions will be there in the case of aqueous sodium chloride. So when in this case, due to the presence of free ions, it will act as a good conductors of electricity. So in the case of ionic molecular solids, ions are the constituent particles, and in between the ions, the strong electrostatic force of attraction will exist, and they are the bad conductors of electricity in the solid state due to the absence of free ions, and they are the good conductors of electricity in molten or fused or aqueous solution state due to the formation of free ions. Okay, and the next one, metallic solids. So what is meant by this metallic molecular solids means? For example, if we take any metal, already we know that metals are electron rich. They are ready to donate the electron. If we take a sample of metal, what happens? Each metal atom which is present in that, for example, if I take zinc, zinc has the capacity to donate 2 electrons. Okay, now these free electrons which are donated by this, they will form an electron pool. Okay, and they are the responsible for electrical conductivity as well as thermal conductivity for the metal ions, metal atoms. So why metals are good conductors of heat and electricity means this is the reason. So what is the reason? As each and every metal is electron rich, they can donate the electron. So due to the presence of free electrons, these free electrons allow the electricity to pass through it, and they will move the thermal energy from one end to another end. And also they are lustrous, malleable and ductile. So what is meant by this lustrous? Lustrous means nothing but ability to exhibit shiny surface. So lustrousness means nothing but ability to exhibit the shiny surface. Malleable means nothing but ability of any element to convert into thin sheets without breaking. If we convert them into thin sheets, then it is called malleable. And so malleability means nothing but ability to convert into thin sheets. And ductility is also nothing but ability to convert into thin wires. So generally metals, in the case of metallic molecular solids, why all metals have these structures means due to the presence of free electrons. Okay, the responsibility of electrical conductivity and the thermal conductivity is nothing but due to the presence of free electrons only. So what are the examples of metallic solids? So metallic solids examples are nothing but all metals like copper, zinc, iron, etc. All the metals are the examples for metallic molecular solids. So in the case of metallic molecular solids, each metal has a contribution towards the pool of electrons. So that pool of free electrons, when an electric field is applied, what happens? Those free electrons will move through the pool of this positively charged ions. So flow of electrons means nothing but electricity only, no? So electricity will pass through that. And in the same manner, when we heat one end of the metal, what happens? The free electrons, they will pass the thermal energy to the other end also. That's why only when we heat one end of the metal, the other end of the metal also will become hot. What is the reason means? Due to the free electrons, those free electrons will transfer the thermal energy from one end to another end. So this is about metallic molecular solids. Or network molecular solids. Covalent or network molecular solids. So most of the crystalline solids that will exist in the form of this covalent or network crystalline solids. So what is meant by this covalent? So here already we are discussing about polar molecular solids and non-polar molecular solids. I told you about covalent bond. This covalent bond has a directional property and it is strong. Covalent bond has a directional property. So in this covalent, the name itself indicating that covalent molecular solids. In between the atoms which are present in these molecular solids, which type of bonds will form? Covalent bonds will form. As this covalent bond has a directional property, the atoms in between which this covalent bond is formed, they are held in that position strong. Okay, best examples for this are diamond, silicon carbide, graphite. These are the best examples for this covalent or network molecular solids. So we can also call them as gained molecules. Why we can call them as gained molecular structure means, for example, if we take this structure of diamond, how will be the structure of diamond? Each carbon is surrounded by the 4 other carbon atoms. Okay? In which manner? In tetrahedral manner. For example, now if I will take this carbon, it is linked with this carbon and this carbon with this carbon with this carbon. Okay? So in this diamond, Each carbon is linked with 4 other carbon atoms. A tetrahedral structure will be there. And these carbon atoms are arranged in the form of hexagonal rings. Okay. So with the 4 other carbon atoms, there won't be the formation of free electrons because carbon valency is 4. Each carbon is surrounded by 4 other carbon atoms, means nothing but there won't be the presence of free electrons. So it will act as a bad conductor of electricity. And one more thing, already I told you, as the formation of strong directional covalent bond, they are strong in that position. So these gained molecular solids are hard. The hardest substance in the world is nothing but diamond only, no? So why? What is the reason? Means due to the presence of this, due to the formation of this strong directional covalent bonds, due to the presence of them, so each carbon is surrounded by the other carbon atoms in the form of tetrahedral arrangement will be there. It will like a network structure. Now I showed you already. And if you take the structure of graphite, generally graphite is soft. Up to now I told you that covalent or network solids are hard. These two are silicon carbide and diamond are hard. But if you take graphite, it is soft and it will act as a lubricant also. And also it acts as a good conductor of electricity. Good conductor of electricity. See here I told you that they are the bad conductors of electricity. But in the case of graphite, due to exceptional property. So what does that mean? Carbon valency is 4 now I told you, no. But each carbon is surrounded with 3 other carbon atoms. Each carbon linked with 3 other carbon atoms and the 4th electron will be free. And also those carbon atoms are also arranged in the form of layers. See now here, if you see, this is the structure of graphite. Now see here, for example, if I take this carbon, it is surrounded with 1, take this carbon, 1, 2, 3. Take this carbon, 1, 2, 3 carbon atoms. First carbon, second carbon and third carbon. Like this, take any carbon in this structure, it is linked with 3 carbon atoms only. So the 4th electron will be free. And see here, this is one layer and this is another layer, this is another layer. That means in the graphite, layers type of structure will be. So due to the existence of weak van der Waals forces in between the layers, it will act as a lubricant, and due to the presence of free electrons, this graphite acts as a good conductor of electricity. So this is about the covalent or network or molecular solids. So generally they are hard and bad conductors of electricity, but except in the case of graphite, due to the presence of that free electrons, it will act as a good conductor of electricity, and due to the existence of sliding nature in between the layers, it will act as a good lubricant. Okay. So now let us compare all the crystalline solids. See here, the molecular solids. These molecular solids are further classified into 3 types: non-polar molecular solids, polar molecular solids, and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So what are the constituent particles? The constituent particles for these 3 are nothing but molecules. And which type of attractive forces will exist in between them means the London dispersive forces or van der Waals forces of attraction will exist in between the molecules in these molecular solids. Either they may be non-polar. So in case of non-polar, van der Waals or London dispersive forces. In case of polar, dipole-dipole interactions will exist. Whereas in case of hydrogen bonded molecular solids, hydrogen bond will exist. Examples for non-polar molecular solids are argon, carbon tetrachloride, hydrogen. Generally, if we take the non-polar molecular solids, see the molecules, they are the examples. Non-polar molecules like whose electronegativity difference is less. The electronegativity difference between the constituent atoms should be very less. So along in such type of molecules are the examples for this non-polar molecular solids. Next, polar molecular solids, HCl, SO2, in which the molecules in which polar covalent bond will form. Those are the examples for polar covalent molecules. Means the electronegativity difference between the constituent atoms will be large. When it is large, then only the bond pair of electrons will shift towards a more electronegative atom, and partial negative charge and partial positive charges will form, as we discussed already. Next, if we take the hydrogen bonded molecular solids, the best example is water in the form of ice. Next, if we take the physical nature of non-polar molecular solids and polar molecular solids, generally they are soft, but if you take the hydrogen bonded molecular solids, they are hard. And electrical conductivity, all these three are insulators. Means they won't allow heat or they won't allow electricity to pass through them. All these three, polar molecular solids, non-polar molecular solids and hydrogen bonded molecular solids are insulators. Why they'll act as insulators means, see here, there is no charge separation in these three cases. In these three molecular solids, there is no charge separation. In the case of non-polar molecular solids, there is no charge separation. Polar and hydrogen bonded, wherever it will see, there is no charge separation. As there is no charge separation due to the absence of free electrons or ions, they will act as insulators. Okay? And if we take their melting points, see here, already I told you the van der Waals or London dispersive forces are very weak. So to divide them, very less amount of energy is sufficient. That's why their melting point is very low when compared with the polar and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So they are less. And for hydrogen bond molecular solids also, the melting point will be less. And next, come to this ionic solids. So the ionic molecular solids are nothing but the name itself indicating that ions are the constituent particles. So in between the ions, which type of forces will exist? See, Coulombic or electrostatic forces of attraction will exist. So this is the strongest force. Best examples are sodium chloride, magnesium oxide, zinc sulfide, calcium fluoride. All the ionic substances are examples for this ionic molecular solids. So they are hard but brittle. And they'll act as insulators in the solid state but good conductors in the molten state. Why? Already I told you. So in the case of solid state, even though there is a charge separation, but due to the existence of this strong electrostatic force of attraction, free ions won't form. So due to the absence of free ions or free electrons, in the case of solid state, they won't allow the electricity through them. But in the case of molten state or aqueous state, what will happen? So the free ions will form and they will allow the electricity to pass through it. So ionic molecular solids are insulators in the solid state and conductors in the molten state. Their melting points are high. Why their melting points are high? Already I told you, no? So due to the existence of strong Coulombic attractive forces, to destroy it, we need to use more amount of energy. That's why their melting points are high. Next, metallic solids. So in these metallic solids, what are the constituent particles? The constituent particles are nothing but positive ions in a sea of delocalized electrons. What is meant by delocalized? Delocalized. They are not localized. They are not particularly present in one place. They will move throughout the lattice of that metal. They will move throughout the pool of that metal ions. So that's why we can call them as delocalized electrons. So what are the constituent particles in the metallic molecular solids? The positive ions in a sea of delocalized electrons. If we take a sample of metal, each metal atom, sample of metal means nothing but we'll have some lakhs of metal atoms. Each metal atom will contribute the electrons to the electron pool. So a positively charged pool will form and a negatively charged pool will form. When we apply any electric field, what happens? This negatively charged electrons will move through the C or full of positively charged ions. That's why they act as a good conductors of electricity both in solid state as well as in molten state. So which type of bond will form into metallic bond? And what are the best examples? Iron, copper, silver, all the metals are the examples to this metallic molecular solids. They are hard but malleable and ductile. That means even though they are hard, we can convert them into thin sheets as well as we can convert them into thin wires. Now when we switch on, the fan will rotate but the bulb will glow. How the electricity will pass from the board to the fan or to the light? So it is passed with a wire only, no? That wire is made up of the metal. So the ability of that metal for any element to convert into thin wires without breaking is nothing but ductility. And also for roofing we are using the sheets. That is also a metallic sheet only, no? So the ability of any element to convert into thin sheet is nothing but malleability. Thin wires means nothing but ductility. So even though they are hard, but they are malleable and ductile. Already I told you they are the conductors in both as well as in solid state and in molten state also, because in solid state also free electrons will be exist in the form of delocalized electrons. So due to the presence of free electrons will be there and metal ions will be there. Due to the existence of free electrons as well as metal ions in the solid state also, it will act as a good conductor and their melting points are generally high. Next, if we take covalent or network or gained solids, we can call them. Here the constituent particles are atoms. Okay, what are the constituent particles here? The constituent particles are atoms. So which type of bond will form? Already I showed you the structure of graphite as well as diamond. So in diamond, each carbon is linked with 4 other carbon atoms, with which bond? Covalent bond will form. So the name itself indicating that covalent. And also in the case of graphite also, each carbon is linked with 3 other carbon atoms with a covalent bond only. So due to the presence of strong covalent bond, see here also 2 types of solids are there again. See silicon dioxide, silicon carbide, diamond. These are hard and they are insulators. But if you take graphite, it is an exceptional case here. This graphite, due to the existence of free electrons and due to the sliding nature of layers, this is soft and it will act as a good conductor of electricity due to the presence of free electrons. Why free electrons are present in this? Already I told you, no? So in case of graphite, each carbon is linked with only 3 other carbon atoms. The 4th electron will be free. So due to the presence of that 4th free electron, they will act as a good conductor of electricity. And generally, see here, strong directional covalent bonds are there. Due to the presence of that strong directional covalent bonds, the melting points are very high, because to break that covalent structure, gained structure, what happened to break that network structure, we need to use more amount of energy. That's why the melting points will be very, very high. So this is about the molecular solid. So in this session, we discussed the types of molecular solids and the differences between all the 4 types of molecular solids. I hope you can understand. Thank you for all for giving this golden opportunity.